morning, good afternoon, good evening. We know we've got people from all over the place, and this is pretty exciting. We're on our, I think our 15th webinar since COVID, and each time the numbers are growing. So we're now roping in clients to help us out. So let me start today, our topic, leading with a sense of urgency, the art of getting stuff done. Terry, my EA, has this as a little note on the side of her desk. And it says, a lack of planning on your part does not make an emergency on mine. Have you ever made a lack of planning on your part someone else's problem? I have. Then I panic and I expect everyone around me to jump and make things all okay for me. This is what happened recently. We don't do PowerPoint at Integrity and Values. Well, we didn't before COVID. We do now. And I am not proficient at PowerPoint. Thank goodness she is. I had made a promise to Alison, who just introduced us, my colleague, that I would have the slides ready for a client workshop. Yay! I just said yes. Have you ever done that? And knowing that my plate was already pretty full, I started to do what I promised and got frustrated because of my lack of skill. I picked up the phone and spoke to Terry and launched into telling her what I wanted with absolutely no context. When I'm stressed and overwhelmed, I talk in bullet points. That's what she told me. She said, you do know you talk in bullet points when you're stressed and overwhelmed. I'm going, right. And then I jump all over the place with 20 different instructions, and she's scrambling to keep up with me. You wouldn't ever do anything like this, would you? Like just dump something on someone. And she's attempting to join the dots. And then this is what happens. I am not making the right noises. Well, she isn't making the right noises over there, right? And she says that I get my voice of disappointment. I don't know what your voice of disappointment is like, but I have one. What do you think that does to her? When her highest value is service, and her motto for me as my executive assistant is, I'm here to make your life easier. So when I'm in a panic and overwhelmed and have a new bright idea, everyone suffers around me. There are many ways that we as leaders cause chaos. And if we can own it, we can do something about it. I've mentioned just one of mine. As leaders, we have the power to send people off on tangents and in all directions on some supposed really important goal or new task that we have for them. How do we act with a sense of urgency so we don't end up with one urgent task after another, causing chaos, stress, and anxiety? That's what we're about today. And our first question for the day for you to go into your breakout rooms with is, I want you to distinguish between urgent and the need to act with urgency. For those of you who haven't been with us before, we'll send you to breakout rooms with your moderator. In your first breakout room, introduce yourself. What company are you with and what location are you in? And what is the difference between urgent and a sense of urgency? Off you go. Welcome back. So what is the difference between urgency and urgent, or a sense of urgency and urgent? Let's start with this. I don't know what you came up with inside of your breakout rooms, but how about this? Urgent is when we are reactive. We have no control over what's happening. Something comes at us, bang, we do something. So when the boss, or you being the boss, comes along and makes a demand on someone that they do something now because it's urgent, it is usually because we could have done something about that earlier. Remember my story with Terry and my PowerPoints? I could have stopped fussing about it for 3 days and given it to her immediately. By the time I gave it to her, I was up the creek with nothing and no paddle, and I just dumped it on her desk. So how do we do that as leaders? How do we not put our people in that position? So how do we stop each other from doing that so that when we take on something, we don't wait until the 11th hour to make it happen? So remember I said that urgent is usually the things that we could have done something about much earlier and we didn't. And now we are in dire consequences if it doesn't happen. And when we create that urgent scenario, we create chaos around us. And guess what happens? How many of you know that when that chaos is reigning, we make mistakes? Our people make mistakes and we make it their problem. Put up your hand if you've ever done something like that. Hey, you've done that. You've pushed it to someone else. So when things are urgent, it feels the level of panic rises and a sense of desperation enters the workplace. Now, by the way, are there things that actually are urgent? When we needed as a nation to deal with COVID, it was urgent. We had to do something. And there were massive actions that leaders took once the announcement was made. And most of the work was urgent. You had to do it when? Now. There was nothing else to do except that. And it fell on the shoulders of the leaders of the organisations. And you know what? Most of us as leaders, we're great in an emergency. We love it. We really thrive, right? So that was cool. Not, okay? It was pretty stressful. So what is a sense of urgency? What does that do? Now, a sense of urgency is driven by proactive behaviour. So what does proactive mean? Exactly what the word means. It's before something dire happens, you do something. How many of you have noticed in your organisations that the urgent only comes around because we didn't act with a sense of urgency on the things that were important earlier? And by the time we do something, it's a mess. So to act with a sense of urgency means that we move things forward purposefully. Purposefully. It's the quality of insistent, applied pressure consistently. We do it all the time. We've got our eye on what's required, and today we're looking across the organisation to ensure that it is happening. Urgency means it's important to the challenges that are central to the success of the business and the survival and winning or losing. What are the actions that need to be taken that will move the business forward? To move forward, what does that take? So remember, urgent, you're reactive to what's going on. A sense of urgency, you're proactive, you're thinking forward. And on a daily basis, you act to move those things forward, and you've got your eye on it. You've got a sense of where things are at inside of the business. So I'm assuming that you all worked that one out. And if you didn't, now you have it. So have a look at your business right now. Where are things falling into the urgent bucket instead of you as a leader acting with a sense of urgency? Go and have a look and write down 1 or 2 things right now that you need to move with a sense of urgency on, rather than just waiting until it absolutely has to happen. Okay, we're going to go to our second breakout room. For those of you who are new, we will send you constantly to breakout rooms. You don't want me preaching at you here. My experience is that collectively we understand this stuff, and when we talk about it, it makes a huge difference. So your next question for your breakout room is, what does it look like when we work with a sense of urgency? Remember, reactive versus proactive. What does it look like when we're working with a sense of urgency? How fast can we move? Off you go. Welcome back. So what does it look like to work with a sense of urgency? As I said earlier, urgency is applying consistent pressure and driving and pushing for a specific result. So I want you to imagine this. How many of you have ever travelled on the German Autobahn? You know, one of those Autobahns that you can do more than 200 kilometres an hour. Ever been on one of those? Right. Now, I haven't. I've heard about it, though, and I can imagine it. So if you travelled at 80 kilometres an hour on that Autobahn, what do you think happens? Well, you're pretty dangerous. In fact, they don't like you. And you kind of get the message, apparently. So what does it mean to work with a sense of urgency? It means that you're applying pressure to that accelerator inside of your business and keeping it there so that you're pushing for the result, so that you can get to your destination where you want the business to go in the fastest possible way. So what are the things that you need to do in order to keep that kind of pressure on? Now, there's 5 things that I want to discuss with you that if you're going to work with a sense of urgency, these are the things you need to be aware of. Number 1, pay attention. Now, people go, oh, I'm here, I made attention. Well, some of us, and me at times, remember my EA story, I've got the lights on and no one's at home. Right? I've gone off ta-da somewhere having my little panic attack. So what do? So if you want to live and work with a sense of urgency, paying attention, being awake is really important. And constantly checking out with yourself and with others about what's going on. Then number 2, what are you paying attention to? Now remember the Autobahn? If you were zipping down the Autobahn at 220 kilometres an hour, and I know some of you adrenaline junkies think that would be absolutely fabulous, but imagine if you run your business like that and you start checking out the scenery while you're driving. Now, I have travelled with people who are doing like 140 and they start checking out the scenery and looking at signs. I get worried. I don't know what would happen to me if they did it while they were travelling at 220. So what are you paying attention to? Because that's really important. Because if you're not paying attention to the things that will move things forward inside of your business, then you are in trouble and you don't know what's going to happen next. So you know that when you're doing that, you're paying attention to the things that move things forward. The third one is hold people to account. Now, for those of you who have been on a number of our webinars, you know that we've done a whole webinar called Leading from the Accountability Zone. I invite you to go and listen to it. It's pretty powerful with some very, very good information and tools on how to hold people accountable. So to move people forward and to move the business forward with a sense of urgency, then holding them to account when you've given them something to do, when you've made an agreement is really important. I'll give you just the 3 rules for holding people to account. 1, it has a timeline. I love the way people go, I want you to do that. And you don't give them when, and then you just gave them a loophole out. How many of you do that? So can you do that for me? But you didn't say when and what time. There are checkpoints along the way. You know, we've got a whole lesson in our Leadership in Action program about when did something fail? When did something lose its sense of urgency? The first day after you handed a big project to someone and they weren't doing anything. I can guarantee it's going to be late. And 3, there are consequences. And mainly the consequences are to the business. So go listen to Leading from the Accountability Zone. Number 4, lower your tolerance level. This is related to holding people to account. What are you tolerating inside of your business? We have a huge lesson just on this one. And what are the consequences because of your tolerances? So give you a little bit of work to do. Go look inside of your business and ask yourself, where are our tolerances? How wide a gap do we have before we say something around here? We cause urgent type behaviour inside of our businesses because our tolerances are too high. Now, here's a question for you, and write this down for yourself. Who in your support structure, that is in your executive, is unafraid to challenge you? Well, I can name my whole team for that. They can give me a pizzling anytime. If they don't think I'm on point, they'll say so. And they don't leave it till tomorrow. They interrupt me while I'm even doing my little song and dance act. So here's the next question. Can you tell me when last they came and gave you, hey, what's going on over there with you? If it wasn't in the last 7 days, they're not empowered. They only do it when they feel absolutely safe. Now, what are you going to do? So go and empower your people. If you demonstrate lower tolerances, you give them permission to do the same with their people. So if you want a sense of urgency inside of your business, lower your tolerances. And the 5th one is have a clear strategy. Okay, so some of you have heard me tell this story before, but without a clear strategy, you do not know what to have a sense of urgency about and what tasks need to be done, like when, now. So we used to have the fog and mirror strategy, and the team will all laugh about it now because it was 3 years ago or 3.5 years ago we gave that up. I used to say, if they fog a mirror, go and give them a profile and a feedback session. And then when that wasn't working, I'd had my next bright idea and I'd send my team running all over the place, and we got nowhere fast. For years, that went on. So when we have bright ideas that are outside of our strategy, say no. So I'm not going to tell them that. Have a strategy for shutting down your next bright idea if it's going to take the business off on a tangent and you lose your sense of urgency. What keeps you moving forward purposefully is a clear strategy with very clear objectives. And you move along and correct with velocity along the way if things go slightly off. If you run off with shiny objects, you will end up creating a lot of urgent work that just wastes time. So creating a sense of urgency means that you've got your eye on the future and you're clear about where you're going and your strategy is immovable. Once we did that in our business, it made a huge difference to our capacity to work and work well together. So you've got your 5 points on how to keep urgency alive. Let's go to our next question. What does false urgency look like? Off you go into your breakout rooms and have a chat about that. What does false urgency look like? Welcome back. So what are the signs of false urgency? How many of you have countless meetings? Countless. You just go from one meeting to the next meeting to the next meeting, and you're like a little mouse going like this. Let me off! Help! And what happens is people back to back your meetings. Ever had that? You finish a meeting at 10 o'clock and you're supposed to start one at 10 o'clock. Are you a magician as well? So that's false urgency, and people think they're doing good work. And inside of those meetings, you have countless conversations about things that you're supposed to be making a decision about, and nothing happens. Come on, tell the truth, everybody. That's what's going on. Nothing happens. People get frustrated, tired, and anxious. I'm supposed to be doing a job, and really all I'm doing is running from one meeting to another, and now I haven't done my actual job. All I've done is talk about the job that I'm supposed to be doing. I can see you all grinning to yourselves, going, yep, that's what it's like. And you've got no time to think. No time to think. I can remember decades ago, there was this guy who did this thing on time management, and any of our clients that are sitting here know that we don't believe in time management. It's a bunch of baloney, whatever it's called. And, people used to say, we're going to have a time of the day and I'm going to block it out for an hour when I just sit there and think. And they even had little videos of people sitting in their offices doing thinking. I just think they were worried about what they hadn't done. They didn't do any thinking at all. So it's not like that. You just need to have that occurrence of space. We have insufficient plans. Do you know why we have countless meetings? Because your plans are inadequate. And you actually don't know, and the strategy is not there. People are so busy running around that they look very busy. How many of you do busy work when you get overwhelmed? Come on. You've got to now tidy up your desk or, put things away or make that phone call about who knows what to who knows where, right? Just in case I look like I'm not doing anything. So the results aren't quite there. You know that you could do much better than you are. And there's lots of excuses and justifications. Does this sound familiar? How many of you are kind of like wriggling in your chair right now going, oh no, that's me. I do it that way. So people are busy. They're anxious. They're not doing what they said they would do, including you as the leader. What do you do about this? And there's lots of excuses about no time. How many of you here don't have enough time? Cool. Maybe I should do a webinar on time. There's no such thing as not enough time. So people run from urgent to urgent because the plan is not clear and they're definitely not sticking. Now, a bad plan is better than no plan, by the way. So have a plan. And you think you're doing good work and you're not, and you're creating as a leader chaos in your wake that other people have to clean up. Remember my EA? She cleans up my mess because I don't stick to the plan. I remember Martina, when I was practicing this, she said, you've gone off the reservation, Jennifer. Where are you? Right? So can you have people check in with you? She said, you're totally off script. And I went, like that. That was my response. And I went, oops, let me go have a look at what you said. So your people can give you wonderful tips about how to stay on sense of urgency and not create urgent chaos around you. How many of you are getting something just from the little bit we've said so far? Go and tell the truth about this stuff. And then work with your people. They will be the best people to figure out what's going on. Notice when you're rigid about some things, and it's because you're afraid of the nonsense that you actually create. So let's go to our last question for the day. Okay, so you've got the sense of urgency or whatever you got going on over there. And what happens? When does complacency kick in? When do we become complacent and don't act with a sense of urgency? Off you go and have a convo about that. Welcome back. So what are the signs of complacency that keep us where we are, moving from one urgent task to another, and having things not go the way we really want them to go? So let's have a look at the signs of complacency. You're a victim of your own success. How many of you started businesses 20 and 30 years ago and it went really, really well for a very long time? And now all of a sudden you've hit a hiccup because you haven't taken the time to figure out what made it work. And when things get hard, you don't know how to repeat what you did or improve on what you did do because you were in the right place at the right time for the right kind of business. You have no external challenge. So you don't actually notice who your competitors are and what they're doing until they've caught up with you. Because you're too busy running around doing really busy, important work. Doing what? I don't know. Not keeping an eye on the business. You have weak accountability structures. So it seems to be, oh, well, it's okay. I mean, I have so many clients say to me, well, you know, we are successful. And I go, so what? You better look at who's snapping at your heels. People get lost in the weeds. How many of you are lost in the doing of the job instead of looking at the job like an eagle and working it out? I promise you, that will have you lose your sense of urgency because you're down there going like this and you can't see the big picture and what's going on. Now, I love this one. People get really smug and self-satisfied. We're so good. We're done so great. Look at us. Wow. As soon as I hear that in our business, I go, forget that. No, everything's wrong now. Because that allows us to go, oh, well, you know, we're so good. No, we're not. What's next? And that's my motto. What's next? How do I keep the sense of urgency alive? And I love the thing about when people think, well, it's always going to be like this. It's always going to be like this. Well, it's not. COVID came and knocked us all off our feet. And those businesses that have clear strategies and know what they're doing and clear plans could stand up and move with velocity and take advantage of it. What did your business do? And don't pretend. Get really clean and clear about it, because I'm telling you, it'll be inside of your strategy. You're not clear, and so your people aren't clear, and everyone runs around in circles. And then the next thing that you do is you buy your own press. You know that story they wrote about you in the newspaper? It's not true. Don't buy your own press. Stay alert. Stay awake and work with a sense of urgency and look, where am I losing my edge? Where could we have improved our performance? And then get on to it. The faster you do, the quicker you move forward. Remember that a sense of urgency is about keeping consistent pressure on, not taking your foot off the accelerator. Stay staying on the autobahn and traveling fast, because people will look at what you're doing, and what you did a year ago, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, someone else is already copying. So stay alert. So complacency is the killer of the future. A sense of urgency is absolutely determined by what you think is important. If you have a clear strategy, then it's a lot easier to maintain a sense of urgency. In summary, you pay attention. Remember that slide? Move with velocity. When you notice something's off, go fast. No, listen to me. Create those accountability structures that make a difference, that keep the sense of urgency front of mind inside of the business. Lower your tolerance levels. This was one of the hardest things for me to do, because I would always have in my mind, well, they're so busy and I shouldn't be putting anything more on them. And one of the things I've had to learn is to give myself the same medicine that I've given our clients. Keep giving them stuff to do until they scream at you, now you need another resource, go get it. And that's what we do. So follow this strategy and have a very clear plan. Now, on the flip side, drop your false urgency, which leads to a lot of busy work inside of your business. Watch when complacency has kicked in and you have just got comfortable because of your success. Don't accept the excuses and the justifications and the denial and the defense about what is going on inside of the business, and stop the busy work. Stop the busy work. A sense of urgency is about doing things on a daily basis that move the business forward. Urgency is created by you being present, living in the now with an eye on the probable future, correcting with velocity, which is created from you from this moment on. All I know is when I live with a sense of urgency, so do my people. When I go to urgent, they go there too. We are responsible for that. Stay present, stay clear, fulfill on your strategy and your vision of your business, and keep a sense of urgency about everything that's going on. Thank you for being here this morning.